Hey everyone, it's Evan Kirstel with another great discussion. Today we have Mitel CMO Venkat Nagaswamy. Venkat, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, and I'm excited to have this chat because we followed each other on social media for years, but we've actually never spoken. So welcome to the discussion. For folks who are new to you and or Mitel, maybe introduce yourself and say a few words about your role at Mitel.
Cool. So I run marketing at Mitel. I've been here for going on 4 months, and I'm responsible for all marketing activities, creating pipeline, and helping our sales guys close and telling the Mitel story to external audiences and internal audiences is what my job is.
Yeah, 4 months. Wow, whole months, or is it? Can we count that in weeks? It's like babies.
I think once you go past one quarter, then you got to count in months.
All right.
So
So tell us why. Where did you come from, and why
yeah,
Mitel?
absolutely. So just to give you some biographical, my potted biography, as it were, I came here after doing a similar job at 8x8, a UCaaS provider. And prior to 8x8, my company, Marianne IQ, which was an AI for marketing company, was acquired by 8x8. That's how I ended up at 8x8. The rest of the organization became the AI for 8x8, but I went into marketing. And the reason I went to marketing is that before starting my company, I was running enterprise marketing at Juniper Networks and working with demand gen and other things back in the day. Prior to that, I was at McKinsey. Before that, I used to sell plastics at GE. This is when I usually say, I took the advice that Dustin Hoffman got in The Graduate. But anyway, so I sold.
You stole my joke. I was totally going to use that.
Yeah. So I did take his advice, and prior to that, I was designing bumpers at Ford. So as I always say, I studied to be an engineer for 7 years, but was an engineer for one, designing bumpers at Ford. So that's and then when I was at GE, I was selling plastics. So switched over to the dark side, as it were.
Well, don't underestimate the power of plastics. And then I think you went to one of the famous IITs in India. So you have a very interesting bio. But let's chat about Mitel maybe for a sec. Mitel is a very storied company, has a lot of history and acquisitions behind it. It's been a while, actually, since I've chatted with anyone from Mitel at length. So tell us, what business exactly is Mitel in today?
Yeah. And let me start that by addressing why I came here, which is an answer to your earlier question. So, all the experience that I've had in working in various companies, one of the lessons that I learned is that focus matters. You cannot be everything to everybody, but focus matters. So when Tarun, the CEO of Mitel, called me, he said, look, we have made this deal with RingCentral, and that allows us to move our UCaaS business to Ring, and this allows us to focus on UC. That is the story, or that's the strategy that we have right now. And that focus is what I believe we can use to win, right? And that story, that strategy that he laid out, are things that I believe that we could make a difference. So to now address your question, we are in the UC business. We want to be number one in the middle market in every region that we compete in. The core UC business, whether you deploy it on-prem or deploy it in a private cloud or the AWS or whatever the case may be, core UC business, a lot of our other competitors are going away from it. Everybody's telling the message of UCaaS. I myself used to tell the message of everything going on to UCaaS as of 4 months ago. But the real truth is that there are companies like hospitals, there are hotels, cruise ships, a whole bunch of these places where on-prem and privately managed private cloud UC is super important. And it is that place where we are adding value, and that is the focus on our business. We want to be number one in the mid-market in UC. That's it.
Well, that's simple enough. And, I would agree the real world is incredibly complex, and the landscape is so dynamic and diverse. It's really more than black and white. So you mentioned hospitals. That's an interesting vertical. What other verticals is Mitel focused on, and where can you add the most value?
Yeah, so the 5 main verticals that we're focused on in the US are SLED, state, local, and education, higher ed, hospitals and healthcare, hospitality, so hotels, cruise ships, etc., casinos, and finally financial services. In other parts of the globe, retail and manufacturing do have a more of a role in here. And the reason why these verticals are important is that these verticals are places where communication is not just about communications, it's also about integrating with a bunch of other things, right? So let's take an example of a school. A school not only has their phone systems, they also have PA that you need to address. So you need to be able to combine old circuit switching or TDM or analog circuits with VoIP and digital circuits. And you also want to be able to do things like emergency notifications, right? So for instance, you want to be able to send a text, send a message when there are disasters. And unfortunately, we have many in schools today. Or it need not be even that bad, right? It could be a parent coming home to pick up a kid that did after a divorce or something like that. So it's when you talk about these situations where in a vertical, there are vertical specific requirements that you need to integrate these various other platforms, that's where we shine. To give you another example, in a hospital, nurses carry our phones. Now the phones are used not just for communications, but the phones are used to detect where the nurses are, which is then integrated with a nurse deployment software, which gets the nurses to be in right stations at the right time. So again, these are places where the presence of the human being is used for other purposes beyond just communications, right? And all of these, and so similarly, when you look at each of the verticals we are focused on, they have these unique requirements, and they also might have requirements in terms of cost, because from a TCO perspective, our CapEx model or even our OpEx model works very well as opposed to UCaaS model in a hotel, for instance, right? So, and by the way, one thing I should note is that in each of these verticals, to drive integrations and to drive the ecosystem, we use our CloudLink platform. And this CloudLink platform allows you to get the same benefits that you can get from a UCaaS in terms of integrations and so on in a private cloud UC market or an on-prem UC market, right? And this is what allows us to have a whole bunch of vertical specific integrations. Our MSA program, Mitel Strategic Alliance program, has 2,000 ISVs that are integrated. So we can offer these vertical specific integrations and vertical specific solutions that solves a problem that's unique for each of these individual spaces.
That's awesome. I also love the idea of mission critical communications where it really matters in healthcare and hospitals and first responders. And
absolutely,
that's just so important. Can't be trusted to anything less than 100% kind of reliability. So interesting. One thing you also at your team talking a lot about lately is something called customer lifecycle management. So give me a primer because I don't exactly know what that is and how Mitel is offering it.
Okay, yeah. So customer lifecycle management is after you make the initial sale to the customer, how do they deploy? How do they use the product? And then as the time evolves, what are the other features, functionality that you're helping them deploy and add on to it? And finally, if they should choose to move elsewhere, help them in this whole transition. Now, software companies, especially SaaS companies, do a good job of it, right? So you have in Salesforce or Marketo, you have CSNs that help you guide through the entire process. But we in the box world or prem world, and this is not just us, it's the whole ecosystem, hasn't been known to do that extremely well. Like a lot of times you give a box and then here's the box and then you got to do what you got to do. So what we're doing right now in terms of CLM is that journey. How do we take a customer from beginning all the way beyond, right? So one, you can do more with what you have, just more licenses, more minutes, et cetera, that you might want. Or you might want to get current on the stack that you have. We make frequent updates to our platform, and therefore, how do you use your software assurance to stay on top of the security changes and other things that we do? Or if you want to choose to go to RingCentral and UCaaS, which a certain sub-segment of our population wants to do every year, 5 to 10% of our audience wants to do, in which case we have a relationship with RingCentral, and we make the path to go to RingCentral the smoothest, least risky, best option for our customers to transition to.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into Ring Central and your partnership, strategic relationship with Ring. What's the status? What's the current impact for customers and partners, and any stories that you have under your belt now that you have some time to reflect on the partnership?
Absolutely. So our core, as a reminder to everybody, Ring Central is our exclusive UCaaS partner. What that means is that our existing cloud, public cloud or multi-tenant cloud customers that have been on our platforms are migrating to Ring Central. We're helping them migrate. That's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is to help our the people who have been on-prem, who want to go to cloud. We are helping them move to Ring Central. And what we've done in this relationship is you get capital protection because we've certified our phones, so you don't need to go swap out the phones. And secondly, we also provide you migration tools where you can take the configurations and other things that you have for the phones and then seamlessly go from our platform into Ring Central's platform. That cuts down your migration process and cuts down the migration time, so much so that I think in one case we found like a $40,000 benefit in doing that because you didn't need to take configurations, and we are providing these tools. And we provide professional services as well to do that. So what this does is if a customer wants to move to cloud, we are the least risky, most secure, best way to do it with the minimum amount of downtime for the customer, and they can move on to this cloud. And because of that, we've had a lot of successes in our under our belt. And I think I don't want to speak for Ring Central, but like you should read that 10Ks where they talk about our relationship and how it's performing. So I don't want to take away that thunder, as it were.
Nice. Well, nothing like making life easier for the customers. That I think what's so great about the partnership. I know it's only been a few months, but what's next from your standpoint, from the team standpoint, over the next 6 months, 12 months? What are you focused on exactly?
Absolutely. So this actually goes to the point that you were making at the end. At the end of the day, the customer is the focus. The customer is the center. And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to offer the choice and flexibility for the customer so that they can solve the problem in whichever way they want. In some cases, it's going to be moving to UCaaS. In a lot of other cases, it could be on-prem, or it could be private cloud or AWS or what you have, right? So our overall vision is that we want to be number one in mid-market, and we accomplish that through our platform, which allows you a lot of choice and flexibility for the customer to do what they want. And so that's still our strategy. The main focus for us in moving forward for the next year or so is to get more focused on our verticals strategy. We are talking to our partners. We are enabling our partners, or we will be enabling our partners over time so that they can focus on certain verticals, so that they can go deeper on it. So that's going to be a big theme that you see. And then, and from a broader level, as you alluded to earlier, Mitel is a company that's grown through acquisition. So over time, I expect to see more acquisitions in the UC space to flesh out our product line, or to get better market presence so that we can solve our customers' problems. And again, the core of what we are trying to do is to offer choice and flexibility to the customer so that they can do what they need to do to solve their problems.
Awesome. Well, transformation, change isn't easy, as we all know in this space. So where do you see yourself in a year in terms of the culture you're building and your engagement with customers and the industry? Where do you hope to sort of be different than legacy practices?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we as human beings identify ourselves with the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And similarly, organizations also identify themselves by telling the story, by having these stories. And so the focus for me as a CMO is for us to tell these customer stories, like the hospital case that I was talking about, or a school case. We want to be able to tell these stories of what our customers are doing, how it's changing their lives, and how it's making them better for themselves, and thereby establish our identity as the UC player, as the only UC player who's investing in UC on-prem and in private clouds, and that is where we want to get to be able to get to that spot. We need to tell more and more of these stories with our customers, with influencers, with everybody in the marketplace, so that they can see what we deliver to the world as a group.
That's fantastic. Well, I love how open and flexible you are. You're on podcasts, you come on live streams like this one. You're really out there on social media. You tweet yourself, which I can't say all of your CMO peers do, sadly. So, congratulations with such a hot start to the new role, and I'll be looking forward with excitement to a lot of your upcoming news and announcements and events. I guess finally, I am curious, just personally and professionally, what do you do to switch off, to unwind, to disconnect? We're talking about connection, but pandemic, it's been a little stressful. So how do you relax?
Yeah. So during the COVID times, I've started getting into woodworking. And wow. So so I live in San Francisco. I built my office way in the crawl space. And outside my office is another space where I have my planers and all my table saws and other things to do.
You're really serious. You're not just whittling with a stick.
No, I have I have more machines in there than I know what to do. And then my wife says it's not that I'm more enamored with the machines than I'm with making stuff. I made her a jewel box and it looks really good, but well, at least I think so. But anyway, so I make small stuff.
Great.
With that. That's what I use.
I'm going to ask you to tweet out a couple of your creations.
I will.
Over the next few weeks, and I'll have a look. And but thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for sharing the new vision and opportunity with us. And onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards. Thanks for your time, Evan.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye-bye.